Hello, people of the internet and beyond. Today, I have some wonderful news. I have been in the lab for months and months on end, studying the player's handbook from cover to cover, searching high and low for hidden tech, and I have found it. It is revealed to me and inspired within me the greatest D&D multi-class build of all time. And I am here today to bestow such wisdom upon you all. Now, I know, you're thinking, look, he's made this claim before, and I've done so to, let's just say, varying degrees of success. And I'm sure to make this claim again in the future. But for those of us willing to live in the here and now, for those of us willing to remove the shackles of the likes of the Dungeon Dykes and others, for those of us willing to believe in the power of low IQ, I will present to you now a build that will absolutely cream your jeans. But before we can get nice and creamy, it must be said that I am an optimizer, yes, but one of a different breed. I like to optimize for style. I like to come up with builds that will garner the admiration of wenches and maidens at Ren fairs across the country. And so if your Elden Ring build looks something like this, then you're probably in the right place. But if it looks something like this, then unfortunately you're probably also in the right place. And if your Elden Ring build looks a little bit like this, then I'm ashamed to say that you probably are also in the right place. But whatever your Elden Ring build looks like, in order to achieve such style in a game like D&D, I like to do something called mid-maxing. And mid-maxing is using features that are mid or terrible, and implementing them such that they become viable, or maybe optimal. And yeah, that kind of is the whole thing. Also, I multi-class stuff that shouldn't be multi-classed. I like to use different classes that, don't otherwise synergize well, and that other players at the table likely won't think to mix and match. This is how we achieve the intended amount of, gamer swag. So, I think that's it. Certainly there are many more disclaimers that I could make, but without further ado, let's just get right into the build. Level 1. For our species, we'll be going Bugbear. Bugbear is an excellent species, but it should be said that technically it is not in the 2024 rule set, or at least it's a pre-2024 rule set feature that was presented in the Monsters of the Multiverse. I don't know, some book. Point is, it's not 2024 official. However, it is backwards compatible if you believe in that sort of thing. I don't even know if I do. The designers quit, so who really knows what's going on with that? But this is the only thing we're going to use that's pre-2024, and it's a species. And in the 2024 rule set, there's not a lot of species to choose from. So I find that in most games, they extend the races or the lineages or the whatevers to other books, and so this probably shouldn't be a problem. But if it is, then my bad. Moving on. For Bugbear, we get a number of features, most importantly, long-limbed, powerful build, and surprise attack. Long-limbed allows us to extend our reach by 5 when we make an attack on our turn. Powerful build allows us to carry more than our size allows, and allows us to push, drag, and lift more than our size allows. And surprise attack, notably, allows us to add an extra d6 to every attack roll made against an enemy that hasn't taken its turn yet in the current combat. This means that we will need to, 1, win initiative, and 2, get as many attacks in our first round as possible. And in this build, we will. For our background, we will be customizing. I don't know if you actually need to, but I just made it easier on me to figure things out. Anyway, the custom will allow us to put a +1 into Dex, Wisdom, and Charisma respectively. And our stat allocation will work out to 13, 16, 8, 8, 16, and 13. And of course, in D&D in dumb fashion, we have a dump stat in Constitution, meaning that this build is going to be squishy, and we're not really going to deal with it, other than the fact that we will be getting our attacks at range, which will help mitigate the damage that we take. And also in the future, you can kind of pick up an origin feat that will help things, but I probably wouldn't. Other than that, our class will help mitigate things a little bit, but generally, you are going to be a pretty sensitive character out there. But that's okay though, just don't be a pussy about it. Anyway, for our custom background feat, our origin feat, we will be taking the alert feat. This will ensure that we can win initiative to some reliable rate, and even if we don't, hopefully a friendly team member will see the utility of our build and allow us to switch with them in the cases where they beat us out or we roll poorly on initiative. For our starting class, we're going Paladin. We will be taking Paladin for 2 levels to start. Paladin is a great class, and we get a few features as a result. You get smites, you get, spells, take Divine Favor, that is a must. Divine Favor will add 1d4 to all of our weapon attacks, using a bonus action, and at no cost of our concentration. We also get 2 weapon masteries, and for those 2 weapon masteries, it is imperative that you take Hand Axe and Light Hammer. Although instead of Light Hammer, technically you can take Dagger, and it would probably be more helpful to do so if you're going to be playing through level 1 and level 2, but overall, you need the Hand Axe and one or the 2 of Light Hammer and Dagger. This will give us the Nick property and the Vex property. If you don't know, Vex allows for when you hit a creature with this weapon and deal damage to the creature, you have advantage on your next attack roll against that creature before the end of your turn, and Nick allows that when you make the extra attack of the light property, you can make it as part of the attack action instead of a bonus action. You can make this extra attack only once per turn. That means that when we attack with our Vex weapon and hit, then we will have advantage on our Nick weapon, which we can use without using our bonus action. So on a turn where we want to cast Divine Smite or Divine Favor, we will be able to do so and still get 2 attacks at low level. We also get a fighting style from being a Paladin, and that will be the Thrown Weapon fighting style. Now you might be thinking that a thrown weapon is a ranged weapon, and therefore won't be able to proc Divine Smite. Because if we look at Divine Smite, clearly it says that it is a bonus action which you take immediately after hitting a target with a melee weapon or an unarmed strike. Now, a thrown weapon, though it is made using a ranged attack, remains a melee weapon. If we look at the equipment descriptions, we're under melee weapons, and thrown is simply a property. Furthermore, if we look at the thrown property, it says, if a weapon has a thrown property, you can throw the weapon to make a ranged attack, and you can draw that weapon as part of the attack. If the weapon is a melee weapon, use the same ability modifier for the attack, blah, 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 blah. So even in the thrown property, it specifies that the weapon can be a melee weapon, and in this case, of course, it is. Also of note, which will come up later, is that you can have your thrown weapons stowed on you, and you can draw them as part of the attack itself. So technically, you could be holding a one-handed weapon. As long as you have a free hand, you don't have to be holding your hand axes at all. So you could have a shield. In this case, we won't, but if you were playing through the first 2 levels, you could use a shield, and that would help. Anyway, at level 2, the damage will look something like this. Use your bonus action to cast Divine Favor. Hopefully you will win initiative and be able to attack an enemy and proc your surprise attack. You will then attack with the Vex weapon and then attack with the Nick weapon using your thrown weapons. And the damage will come out to around 31 damage on average. From there on out, you're doing the same thing, but you get to add Smite every once in a while. Of course, you only have 2 more spell slots after you burn that Divine Favor. Or I'm sorry, you only have 1 more, but you always have 1 Divine Smite in the chamber, given that it is a feature of Paladin. Moving on. At level 3, we take our first multi-class class, and that's going to be Monk. Monk gives us a number of things. Notably, it changes all of our thrown weapons to a D6 using the martial die. We also get unarmored defense, which at this point is 16, and we also get an unarmed strike using our bonus action. This is especially useful when we remember that we have long-limbed feature of the bugbear thing. This means that we can still attack from range and technically even unarmed strike from range. as long as we're within 10 feet of the enemy that we are throwing our hand axes at. So at level 3, our strategy looks like this. You want to get just within 10 feet of an enemy, and of course you want to win initiative. And then you want to attack it as many times as possible. And at level 3, that's 3 times. First with your hand axe with Vex, then with your light hammer using the Nick property, and then with your bonus action using the unarmed strike. In the first round of combat, if you're able to attack an enemy that hasn't attacked yet, then you will do approximately 41.5 damage. From there on out, you're going to have to cast Divine Favor on your second turn, which will give you an average of 19 damage. And then from your third attack onward, you will then be able to use that bonus action again, and you will land 25.5 average damage per round. Now, of course, that's not including smites. Again, we don't have many, but you definitely want to smite on turns where you haven't yet used a bonus action, and on turns where you crit. Actually, your bonus action unarmed strike is probably just as good on average as a smite, 2d6 versus 1d6 plus 3. It's close. 2d6 is still better, but not much. The smite is always better if you crit, so keep that in mind. At level 4, we take another level of monk, and we get a couple of things. We get increased movement. This will allow us to better be able to step in and out of range with our bonus action unarmed strike attack and close that 20 feet of range with our thrown weapons. This means that basically we can hopefully, on many turns, get close enough to attack and then move away far enough to where maybe they can't chase us, or at least it's difficult for them to. Later it'll be even better, but for now we have 40 feet of movement. We also get Flurry of Blows. We only have 2 focus points at this level, but that means 2 times per combat we can get an extra bonus action attack unarmed strike. We're not gonna calculate that into the damage. And if you've noticed, I also haven't calculated in average hit, crit chance. Even the damage numbers are kind of wobbly because if you think about it, you have a lot of different ways to approach a given turn, and the sequence is going to change depending on if you crit, depending on what sorts of resources you have left, etc. So, given the layout of this damage, it looks something like this. Your first attack, if you're able to hit them before they've attacked, you're going to do around 41.5 damage, and then 19 and 25.5, so nothing has changed unless you're utilizing that Flurry of Blows. At level 5, though, things do change just a bit. At level 5, we get our subclass after taking another level of Monk, and in doing so, we get a feature known as Elemental Attunement because we are a warrior of the elements. As a warrior of the elements, we get to spend 1 focus point and imbue ourselves with elemental energy for the next 10 minutes or unless we're incapacitated. And we get the following as a result. 1, we get to increase our reach by 10 when we make an unarmed strike. That means our unarmed strike effective reach, given our long-limbed feature from Bugbear, is 20 feet, which is the same as our thrown weapon, which means that we can really do a lot when you add our plus 10 to movement to stay out of reach of enemies. Also, when you hit with an unarmed strike, you can change the damage to acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder. And in addition, you can force a target to make a saving throw, and on a failed save, you can move that enemy 10 feet towards you or away from you. Now, our DC is only 14, or no, is it 13 right now? No, it's 14, because our wisdom is only 16, and remember our dex is also only 16, meaning we're hitting at a lower rate, but we do get advantage from Vex, so maybe it's offset, maybe not, hard to say. We'll be able to deal with it later. But the point is, for your elemental strike saving throw, they are going to save pretty often, but it's still worth using, especially when at 6th level, after we take another level of Monk, we get an ASI. And instead of an ASI, we're going to take a feat. Now you might be thinking, hey man, we should take the dual wielder feat because we're dual wielding weapons and blah blah blah, and we need to add our dex to the second light hammer attack or whatever. No, you're wrong. We're taking the polearm feat. Polearm Master is a great feat, and of course it has appeared in a previous video of mine, and let's just say I was generous with my interpretation of the rules and my utilization of this feat, but in this build, no such thing will happen. With Polearm Master, we will add 1 to our dex, getting it to 17, which doesn't change anything for now. We also get the Pole Strike ability and the Reactive Strike ability. Pole Strike we will never use, but Reactive Strike we will use quite often. Reactive Strike does the following. When you're holding a quarterstaff, a spear, or a weapon that has heavy and reach properties, you can take a reaction to make 1 melee weapon against a creature that enters the reach you have with that weapon. The reach we have with a quarterstaff would effectively be 10 feet, because our Bugbear long-limbed feature does synergize with it, but it's not an unarmed strike, so the monk feature probably wouldn't. However, like I said, we get the forced movement of the elemental strikes thing. So if they fail on their saving throw, they are dragged 10 feet towards us. After hitting them from 20 feet away with an unarmed strike, pulling them 10 feet towards us would be perfect range to trigger the reactive strike of Polearm Master. And given the fact that we can be holding a quarterstaff while still throwing our light weapons, our hand axes and light hammers, and at the same time using our unarmed strikes, there's no point not holding a quarterstaff. So, yeah, it works, and we should be able to trigger it reliably as long as they can fail that save. And think about this, even if they don't trigger the save, we're attacking from range, and enemies will likely want to close the distance. So it's safe to say that we will often be able to trigger this reactive strike when creatures try to chase us down. And so at level 5, level 6, when we take this feat, our damage increases quite a bit. Our first round should look like the following. Hopefully we win initiative. If not, we trade with a friendly teammate, and we use our 40 feet of movement to track down a enemy who has not attacked yet. We then throw a hand axe, followed by a light hammer, followed by a bonus action unarmed strike, in which we force them to make a DC 14 strength saving throw or be dragged towards us. When they fail, hopefully, then we take our reactive strike with our quarterstaff, all of which are added. The surprise attack is added to them, so all the 2d6s are added. And on average, that should result in 56 damage if all things hit. On our second attack, it's the same as before. And on our third attack, we then get to do more of the reactive strike nonsense, and we should average around 34.5 damage per round then on out. Don't forget, we also have smites, which of course conflict with our bonus action attack, but should be used on attacks with the light hammer, or the hand axe rather, where we crit. And we also have Flurry of Blows. And at this point we'll have 4 focus points, one of which will be spent every time on the monk elemental warrior thing. But other than that, you might as well spam them on Flurry of Blows. That is until 7th level, because at 7th level, we take another level of monk. And with another level of monk, we get a few things. For one, our martial die increases to a D8, which means all of our attacks are now D8s. It also means that we get extra attack, which of course will come in handy, and everyone else in the party got it 2 levels ago, but we technically were able to attack like 3 times, given the fact that we had the Nick Vex thing and the unarmed strike bonus action. But now we have a fuck ton of attacks. And we get Stunning Strikes. Now, Stunning Strike is a very good feature. Once per turn, when you hit a creature with a monk weapon or an unarmed strike, you can expend 1 focus point to attempt a Stunning Strike. The target must make a con saving throw. On a failed save, the target has the stun condition until the start of your next turn. On a successful save, though, the target's speed is halved until the start of your next turn, and the attack roll made against the target before then has advantage. So, when we calculate the fact, or we consider the fact that our saving throw is pretty easy to make, it's a DC 14 con saving throw, many enemies at 7th level will make this at a reliable rate, let's say. It doesn't even matter when you factor in the fact that it's going to give us advantage on our next attack roll, and it's going to slow their speed. This is incredibly important when you factor in the fact that we have plus 10 movement and we're attacking with our unarmed strikes from 20 feet of range. So you might as well do this. Best case scenario, they fail. Worst case scenario, they have a hard time chasing you down, and you get advantage, which you need because our dex is low. So do this all the time. Also, there's nothing in the rules that say we can't force the saving throw of the elemental strikes at the same time as forcing the saving throw of the stunning strike. And if they fail the stunning strike, then they automatically fail the strength saving throw of the elemental strike, which means that you'll drag them towards you and reactive strike no problem. So at level 7, the damage looks something like this. 76.5 damage on your first round, 33 on the next, and 46.5 on the rounds after. And that is without calculating flurry of blows or smites. Of course, you only have 5 focus points, but you get them back every time you, do a new combat. And 5 should kind of be enough. So, yeah, a lot of damage. And then things get better, because at level 8, we go back to Paladin, take 1 level, and we become a Vengeance Paladin. Vengeance Paladin will allow us 2 resources of Channel Divinity, which we can use to Vow of Enmity. In Vow of Enmity, when we make an attack as a free action, we can use this Vow of Enmity to get advantage against attack rolls against a particular creature, and then we can move that Vow of Enmity to a different creature, again as a free action once that creature falls to 0 hit points. This is incredibly valuable, again, when we consider that we are behind on our ASI progression and desperately need advantage anywhere we can get it. The damage, however, does not change. That is, of course, until level 9. Because at level 9, we take another level of Paladin and we get another feat. This feat, maybe should be an ASI. Maybe it always should have been an ASI to start off with the polearm shenanigans, but it's not gonna be. Instead, it's gonna be the Grappler feat. Grappler gives us +1 dex, rounding our dex out to 18. This means now we have a +4 dex, and our proficiency bonus has also increased, which means that our stun and reactive strike DC has increased to 15. And a very important under-considered element of this build, the grapple now has a DC 17 save or whatever. Grappler feat gives us a few things, but the thing that's important for this build is that when you hit a creature with an unarmed strike as part of your attack, you can use both the damage and the grapple option, and you can use this benefit only once per turn. That means when we make our bonus action unarmed strike / reactive strike / stunning strike, we can also pile on a grapple without having to diminish our damage. And if this creature has failed a stunning strike, they're automatically grappled and automatically reactive stricken. So this is well worth the feat. And the damage is the following: 80.5 damage on your first round, second 35, third and so on 50.5. Also from our subclass, we got Hunter's Mark and Bane. Hunter's Mark would be useful on this build, but it's going to clog our bonus action, which is already plenty clogged when we consider the unarmed strike bonus action versus smite dilemma. But if you have the resources and you can fit it in, why not, it's something you got in the bag, right? So there you go. Now, some of you might be thinking, you cannot grapple from 20 feet of range, or at least that grapple will be gone the next turn, will it not? To that I say, no, you're wrong. Because if we look at the rules glossary, we very clearly see that the grappling condition is ended if the grappler has the incapacitated condition, or if the distance between the grappled target and the grappler exceeds the grapple's range. I'll read that again. The grappled target and the grappler exceeds the grapple's range. The grapple's range was determined at the point of attack, and the attack was 20 feet. So even though this feature, for example, from Bugbear says only on your turn your reach is increased by 5 feet, it's not the grappler's reach that we're concerned with. It's the reach of the grapple, which was, and technically is, 20 feet. So we can grapple from range. Look at that. Pretty cool, huh? You might be thinking, yeah, but maybe you can grapple from range, but What about the fact that we don't have any hands left? We're trying to quarterstaff attack. We're trying to throw throwing weapons. And now you're trying to grapple. If you have one hand on the quarterstaff and one hand grappling an enemy, then you have no hands to throw weapons. And to that I say, again, you are wrong. If we look at the equip and unequip rules in the rules glossary, we see that you can either equip or unequip one weapon when you make an attack as part of this action. You do so either before or after the attack. If you equip a weapon before an attack, you don't need to use it for the attack. Equipping a weapon includes drawing it from its sheath or picking it up. Unequipping a weapon includes sheathing, stowing, or dropping it. This means that we can stow our quarterstaff. We can draw and stow it as a free action. Or I'm sorry, draw or stow it as a free action. But we can also, notably, as read earlier, in the thrown weapon description, if a thrown weapon has a thrown property, you can throw the weapon to make a ranged attack, and you can draw that weapon as part of the attack. Meaning that if we use this rules glossary equipment thing to unequip or re-equip our quarterstaff, then it doesn't conflict with our ability to throw our things. You know what I'm saying? So basically, let's say we have an arm that's grappled, and we have our quarterstaff in our hand, right? Then we can unequip it and start, doing the thing, right? We can start throwing hand axes. Maybe I'm getting confused. I'll be honest. I'm not. This is a tough one. Maybe there is some conflict, but think about it. There's really not, because you can equip and unequip it. You can equip it or unequip it, the quarterstaff, and you can throw things and it doesn't conflict. And you can also have the quarterstaff in the grappled hand, right? I think. I don't know. Maybe this does have some conflict, but, look at these rules. It seems like probably, if you had like 15 more IQ points, you could figure out a way in which this does not conflict. Moving on. At level 10, we're actually going to take a level of fighter. And a level of fighter will give us a few things, weapon mastery, so we can take the weapon mastery of the quarterstaff or, something else if you want. But we're also going to get a fighting style for which we will take unarmed fighting. And unarmed fighting will allow that at the start of each of our turns, we can deal 1d4 bludgeoning damage to a creature grappled by us. We should reliably be able to grapple creatures, and this will reliably add 1d4 damage for just one level of investment into a class. Worth it. At level 11, well, actually, from here on out, you can kind of do whatever you want. Again, the damage at level 10 is something like 80, 35, and then 50, then on out, plus smites and flurry of blows, plus grapple 1d4s, and levels 11 through 20, the world is your oyster. You should probably just take one more level of fighter to get action surge, because then your level 1 surprise round attack damage will just be absolutely insane. But you could also take levels of, for example, druid to get higher level spell slots to make your smites more utilized. And let's be honest, they're very underutilized, especially by now. You could also go pure monk so that you can level up your martial die and get that to a D10. Oh, and by the way, druid would have given you shillelagh, which you could use on your quarterstaff, which would get it to like a D10 or something or more, I forget. But again, monk, will get you very far, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, you can do all the things, the monk things, get the martial die to a D10 at level 11, so you need 6 more levels of monk. Maybe that's not worth it, but you also get those ASIs for which you can increase your wisdom probably, which will allow for the DC saves of your reactive strike and your stunning strikes to increase. Or you could level Paladin. And leveling Paladin will give you the aura stuff and will also let you have higher spell slots and more varied smiting spells, again, increasing the utilization of your smites. You could also go Warlock and get an origin feat and some pact magic And maybe you go Fiend, and then you get some temporary hit points, which might help your squishiness. Although that should be heavily mitigated by the fact that we're at range, we're grappling things, we're stunning things, etc. So like I say, the world is your oyster. Again, I suggest at least one more level of fighter. And I would probably maybe just go full spellcaster to get smite slots. And if not, then I go full monk from then on out. And yeah, that's the build. So there you go. Oh, I should also mention, I forgot to say this earlier, but the bugbear thing lets you carry basically infinite throwing weapons. So like, because you're a bugbear, your carrying capacity is increased to a large creature. And in build setup or character creation, you can elect to use gold instead of the given equipment. And use the gold to just buy infinite, obviously not infinite, but buy, 45, 50, 60 light hammers and hand axes or daggers if you chose that route. And yeah, I think that's it. Pretty good, right? A lot of damage. And you're a monk paladin. No one's ever done that before. Yeah, and you're bonus attacking, or you're unarmed striking from 20 feet away. And you're throwing things. And you're running around because you have infinite movement, kind of. And you're a monk, but you're a paladin, and it's, I don't know. Pretty good, right? All right, that's it. Love you. Bye.